Hey there! Are you a crime scene investigator, law enforcement officer, or forensic scientist looking for a Facebook community that understands you? Check out Taction USA's forensic product groups. You'll find blogs, articles, information, and community. For those of us in the investigative field, there are not many lines of support out there, but Taction USA is a company that was founded by law enforcement for law enforcement. Subscribe today to get access to exclusive content. Just look for Taction USA in Facebook groups. Welcome to Crossing the Tape, your favorite true crime podcast. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Hillary, and I'm joined by
Brendan.
And today we're going to bring you a different story, somewhat, but it's important, especially for those in policing, because some of the aftermath changed modern-day policing. We'll get to it. But
yeah, it kind of shaped a lot of how we got to where we are.
Yes. So, please join us and sign the crime scene log on your way in. And join us for
the Showdown in Vice City. So, in 1986, the Federal Bureau of Investigations was closing in on a pair of wanted men in a stolen vehicle. And when they located the vehicle, what should have been a high-risk traffic stop and a pair of arrests became one of the darkest days in FBI history, as well as a pivotal moment for all of law enforcement. The ripple effect from this incident helped shape modern police tactics and policies, but at a grave cost. This is the story of the 1986 FBI Miami shootout. Now, the story begins with a couple of military police officers, 31-year-old William Maddox and 34-year-old Michael Platt. The pair met in the mid-70s while they worked as Army MPs. They remained friends after Maddox was honorably discharged in 76, and when Platt was honorably discharged in 79. They remained long-distance pals, and their lives remained uneventful until late December of 1983, when Maddox's wife, Patricia, who is a cancer researcher, and one of her co-workers were murdered. Patricia Maddox and Joyce McFadden were found bound and gagged, with their throats slashed in the laboratory of the Riverside Methodist Hospital in Columbus, Ohio.
Yikes.
The murders were never solved, but Maddox was considered a suspect in the murders. He collected on a $350,000 life insurance policy.
Jeez. And
moved himself down to Florida, where Michael Platt lived. Maddox and Platt worked together at Platt's tree trimming service, and Maddox remarried in 1985. So, good friends are back together.
Right. After
a tragedy and an influx of cash. Incredibly, Platt's wife also had a violent, untimely death. In late December of 1984, Regina Platt was found dead from a shotgun blast to the mouth.
Jeez.
Now, that blast was determined to be self-inflicted, and her death was ruled a suicide, but there were doubts, especially after the 1986 FBI shootout. But we'll get there. It was even theorized that Platt and Maddox killed each other's wives. However, that was never proven, just theorized, especially since Maddox, during the investigation, had mentioned he thought at one time Platt was having an affair with his wife, I guess back when they were in the military. So, friendship and jealousy and who knows what else between these two.
Right.
Now, the likelihood of two friends' wives meeting a terrible demise almost exactly a year apart is quite low, making the situation a bit suspicious, at least on the surface.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I'd say. I don't believe in coincidences, usually.
Yeah, and with what we know about these guys later, well, it wouldn't surprise me.
Right.
I understand it was never solved or proven, but I would buy the story.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Platt also went on to remarry in 1985. Now, on October 4th of 85, 25-year-old Emilio Brielle was reported as missing after he didn't return home from his day of shooting. Emilio would often engage in target practice at a rock quarry south of Miami, Florida. He and his gold 1977 Chevrolet Monte Carlo were nowhere to be found after his disappearance, which would be unexplained for 8 months. His car, however, was recovered in January of 86, and the circumstances of that recovery gave a good indication of what exactly happened to Emilio. On October 10th of 85, 2 men attempted to rob a Wells Fargo armored car at a Miami supermarket. They drew weapons on the 3 guards and ordered them to freeze. One of the robbers fired and struck a guard in the leg. Rounds were exchanged and the 2 men fled in their vehicle before they got their hands on any cash. That guard unfortunately later died from his wounds, but no one else was injured. On November 8th of 1985, the same 2 men successfully robbed the Professional Savings Bank in Miami, making off with over $40,000. They struck again on January 10th of 1986, ambushing a Brinks truck, shooting a guard in the back with a shotgun. The pair of robbers approached the downed guard and shot him twice more with a .223 rifle, which is a common caliber found in AR-15s and Mini 14 type rifles, both fairly common still today. The guards survived the shooting, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I believe most of the shotgun usage by these robbers involved birdshot.
Okay.
Which is torture.
Yeah, I was going to say that's...
those tiny, tiny pellets won't penetrate a human usually enough to do severe damage.
Not unless it's close range.
Right. But this fellow, the guard, survived with 100 pellets still in his body, as well as 2 rifle rounds.
Yeah.
So lucky him. $54,000 was stolen from the truck on that occasion, and a witness saw the men flee in what turned out to be Emilio Brielle's gold Chevrolet Monte Carlo. The vehicle was located abandoned nearby, indicating the robbers had switched to a different vehicle and fled. Emilio Brielle's remains were found in the Florida Everglades in March of 1986 and were formally identified in May of that year. He had been shot and killed with his remains disposed of by the 2 fellows that stole his car. Now, also in March of 86, on the 12th, at the same rock quarry Emilio went missing from, 30-year-old Jose Collazo was target shooting when he was approached by 2 men with guns. They introduced themselves as fellow shooting enthusiasts and chatted with Jose before turning their guns on him. Collazo was robbed of his wallet, keys, and his Ruger Mini 14 .223 caliber rifle. For good measure, they shot Collazo 3 times and drove away in his black 1982 Chevy Monte Carlo. So they seem to like robbing people at the quarry who have Monte Carlos and guns.
Yes. I was going to say, there's a correlation here.
It's weird that that's their
thing.
Thing. Don't go to the quarry in a Monte Carlo.
Lesson learned.
Yeah. Take that one with you. That's our tip for the day.
Yeah.
Collazo was wise enough to play dead even after they threw him down in the quarry until the attackers were gone. He then walked 3 miles to get help for his injuries after being shot 3 times and taking a severe fall. He was able to report the incident to police, provide a description of the 2 men, which resulted in composite sketches, and of course for his vehicle being the subject of a large Be on the Lookout bulletin. On March 19th, the same 2 men used Collazo's Monte Carlo as their getaway vehicle during a robbery of the Barnett Bank in Miami. Armed with Collazo's rifle and a shotgun, the pair nabbed $8,000. Given that bank robbery is a federal offense, the FBI was already looking into the pair of bank robbers terrorizing Miami. Since the black Monte Carlo and the Mini 14 rifle matched Jose Collazo's, the 2 men in the composite sketches had to be the bank robbers as well as Emilio Brielle's killers. It all connected. It's got to be them. And it was of the utmost urgency that the agents identify and arrest them before they strike again. And we'll discuss the FBI investigation into this incident right after the break, brought to you by the National Investigative Training Academy.
If you are looking for a career change or to expand your knowledge in an already established one, look no further than the National Investigative Training Academy. The National Investigative Training Academy, or NITA, N-I-T-A, has well over 100 courses with 70 professional development ones alone. NITA is constantly adding to their course catalog, and courses are focused on private investigation and security fields. Whether you would like to become a private investigator or you need continuing education for your investigative or security career, the National Investigative Training Academy is for you. All courses offered are 100% online and do at your own pace. Once completed, you will receive a certificate in that course. Sign up today at investigativeacademy.com. Make sure when you sign up for your courses, you mention we sent you there. We encourage you to get the best investigative and security training possible today. When you sign up, mention our brand ambassador code, BA2367. That's BA2367, and you can find those courses at investigativeacademy.com. Look for links in our show notes as well.
Now, as we talked about before the break, the FBI was looking into a pair of bank robbers who had been terrorizing the Miami area as well as stealing Monte Carlos from men shooting at a rock quarry. I don't know if that was coincidence, that it was the same kind of car, or what.
I wonder if somebody just thought it was cool.
It could have been.
Which is strange, but okay.
The Monte Carlo was sweet. Now, the FBI created a task force to catch the Miami bank robbers, led by Supervisory Special Agent Gordon McNeil, a 20-year FBI veteran. Under his command were Special Agent Richard Manouzi, 15 years experience, Special Agent Benjamin Grogan, 25 years experience, Special Agent Edmundo Mireles, 7 years experience, Special Agent Jerry Dove, 4 years experience, Special Agent John Hanlon, 23 years experience, Special Agent Gilbert Ornantia, 4 years experience, and Special Agent Ronald Reisner, 22 years experience. So, some
decent,
long tenured dudes in there. 25, 20, 15, 23,
and
22.
then collectively, that's always more valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, collectively, it's well over 100 years experience. Now, there were 6 additional agents on a task force. However, they were not on scene for what would become the conclusion of this case. On the morning of April 11th, 1986, the task force met at 0900 hours at a parking lot to determine where the 14 agents would conduct surveillance using 10 unmarked vehicles. Given the robberies had all occurred in the area of the South Dixie Highway, the patrols would be focused there. While the investigation and the search for the Black Monte Carlo had been ongoing, Agent McNeil had a particular feeling about the 11th being the day they caught their suspects. And in a way, he was right. But he had expressed to the other agents, I've got a hunch about the 11th. Let's spread out on that day. Most of the robberies had occurred on Fridays in the morning hours, so that made this particular day a solid possibility for the robbers to strike again. The units all had their assignments and began driving the streets, keeping their eyes peeled for 2 armed men in a black 1982 Chevrolet Monte Carlo, possibly headed to rob a bank or an armored car. So that means they're probably armed.
Yeah, I'd say so.
It didn't take long for the rolling stakeout to pay off, because at 9:32 a.m., Agent Grogan radioed in that he and Agent Dove were tailing a black Monte Carlo on South Dixie Highway. He called in the plate number and got the news that he and the other agents were looking for. That plate number belonged to Jose Collazo's stolen car. The 2 silhouettes he could see in the driver and passenger seats were the murderous bank robbers. Now, this was the break they needed. It was time to make a move. So as the other agents converged on Grogan's position, there was no time to change from plain clothes to body armor and FBI jackets.
Right.
In fact, only 2 of the agents involved here had their body armor on. And
Yikes.
Interestingly, I don't think either of them was actually hit like in the torso.
Right.
So that didn't make a difference for them, but probably would have been better if everyone was armored from the get-go.
Right.
Which is something that we do today. So
well, yeah,
there's one change.
I was about to say, yes, that is one of the changes. Like, that's now protocol.
Yeah. You wear your body armor every day.
Yes.
Doesn't matter.
Which I'm grateful for.
Not, we're going to go do something important. Let's all put on our armor. No.
No, it's
It goes with you 24/7. Well, at least for the duration of your shift.
Yes.
Hopefully that's not 24 hours. God help you. So, Agents Mireles and Hanlon caught up to Grogan and Dove, who activated their siren and a blue emergency light on the dashboard to begin the felony stop.
Right.
They'd radioed in, felony stop, let's do it. Let's move. The driver and the passenger looked behind them at the unmarked cars following them before they sped up, failing to yield for the traffic stop. Agent Manouzi caught up to the chase perpendicularly at an intersection where he could see the subjects in the car loading their weapons. So he rammed the driver's side of the fleeing vehicle 2 times.
Jeez.
So he just went straight for it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they got guns, not waiting for them to pull over or this to get further. So he struck him twice. That caused the suspect vehicle to slide into a parking area off the shoulder of the road at a T intersection. They struck a tree head on, and they were pinned partially against a parked vehicle on the passenger side and Manazi's car on the driver's side. So they're pinned in, can't go anywhere but reverse, maybe.
Right.
But Grogan and Dove stopped behind the suspect vehicle, and Morales and Hanlon stopped on one corner across the street from the parking area, and they ran into a wall as they did, because they were kind of screeching into this thing too, so they bumped into a retaining wall. Ordantia and Reisner stopped on the adjacent corner, and Supervisory Special Agent McNeil stopped next to Manazi's car, so he's right up there too.
Yeah.
Right up in the stack of cars. Mm-hmm. He was facing the opposite direction when he pulled in. So the suspects were surrounded, and there was silence for a moment before McNeil exited, gun drawn, and demanded the men in the car put their hands up. From the passenger seat, Michael Platt fired his stolen Mini-14 rifle towards Grogan and Dove, and McNeil, the closest agents to him. As the agents scrambled to draw and return fire, both Manazi and Hanlon had unholstered their rifles during the brief car chase and lost them during their respective crashes. So I believe it was Manazi had put his revolver on the passenger seat next to him, figuring he would just grab it as he was hopping out of the car. But in the crash, it went flying
somewhere
out of sight. He never found it. Which is another thing they teach you not to leave your weapon in the holster until it's time to bring it out. Don't try to get ahead of yourself.
Leave the holster on your person.
Yeah, and leave your gun in the holster on your person. Don't go to work without your gun.
Yeah.
So Hanlon was able to arm himself with his backup snub-nosed revolver from his ankle holster, which is also good to carry a backup. Mm-hmm. And Manazi was unarmed during the remainder of the fight, which is
bananas.
I can't imagine the sick feeling showing up to a gunfight without a gun.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You don't have a fighting chance.
Yeah. Start throwing some big rocks, I guess. William Maddox fired his shotgun from the driver's seat, striking Manazi twice. So the unarmed guy was hit immediately in the side with a shotgun. Again, I believe birdshot.
Yikes.
But now he's unarmed and incapacitated. McNeil was able to fire all 6 rounds from his revolver into the suspect vehicle before he took a rifle round to the arm and took cover behind his car to reload, which took him a good while because he's now doing it one-armed, bleeding, and in shock and trauma. Meanwhile, Agent Hanlon, with only his 5-round backup gun, ran towards Grogan and Dove's vehicle in an attempt to save them because the 2 men were trapped in their car as a result of the crash, and they were trying to exit while they're under heavy rifle fire from a close range. Agent Grogan managed to hit Maddox in the arm, and Agent McNeil followed up with rounds to the head and neck, which didn't kill Maddox, but it knocked him out for a while. So he was just hit in the head and the neck, as well as another one in the arm. And he's still
alive
with us, more or less. Although the initial shotgun blasts were about the only aggressive action he was able to take towards Manazi before he got knocked out by a bullet to the head, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah.
Platt jumped out of the Monte Carlo and took cover at the front of it, firing on the agents as they took cover from the hail of high-powered rifle rounds. So when he jumped to the front of his car, he had a pretty good vantage point of where everyone was already ducking down to cover and return fire. That point of view that he had was a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the agents. Agent Morales fired his shotgun at the bank robbers as he ran to help McNeil, who had just been shot in the shoulder, back, neck area by Platt and was temporarily paralyzed. So he'd already been hit in the arm, and now he's effectively out of the fight.
Yeah.
As he ran to McNeil, Morales was also shot in the arm, causing him to collapse, and he was fading in and out of consciousness. Agent Dove had managed to hit Platt with a 9mm round as Platt exited the Monte Carlo, and the round traveled up Platt's arm, into his torso, punctured a lung, and stopped just short of his heart.
That's nuts.
And Platt shrugged that off and just kept firing.
That's insane.
Yeah. Dove hit Platt in the thigh and ankle as he ducked behind the car next to them, an Oldsmobile. So he went to move from his car to another, hit 2 more times. Still, the fight was on. Platt transitioned to a pair of .357 revolvers, and despite being shot again by both Arrantia and Reisner, they both managed to hit him from their car across the street. He managed to injure Arrantia thanks to some shrapnel. I'm guessing a bullet struck the car and took him down. And Platt took Dove out of the fight by shooting his gun, destroying it. Probably not what he was trying to do, but hey, a .357 round destroyed Dove's 9mm handgun so that the slide could no longer operate. And there's pictures of that from the FBI that are out there. Huh. Just a big hole in the side of a gun.
It's interesting.
Hanlon attempted to reload his snub-nosed revolver, but he was shot in the hand, preventing him from getting back in the fight. So they're one by one.
Picking guys are off.
Falling out of the fight. Platt advanced on Grogan, Dove, and Hanlon, who were at the back of their vehicle, trying to get Dove's destroyed pistol back in the fight. I guess they hadn't realized, it's totally done.
Yeah.
He probably initially thought it was a malfunction.
Right.
So they were trying to, strip the magazine or whatever, but the gun was destroyed.
Yeah.
Platt advanced on them as they tried to fix the gun, and he shot and killed Grogan, 1 round in the chest, and Dove with 2 rounds in the head. At that point, Hanlon, who couldn't reload because of his injured hand, kicked Platt in the leg, and he was later quoted as saying, "I could tell he was dying," because he was all shot up. At this point, he's got 1 all the way almost to his heart, a couple in the leg, 2 more, I think.
Jeez.
At least 5 rounds in him. He's bleeding, and even immediate surgical intervention wouldn't have saved the punctured lung. So it's a matter of time before this guy drops.
Yeah.
But he's still fighting.
Yikes.
So Hanlon, unarmed, kicked him in the leg to try to do something to help as he was executing the other 2 agents. And for that, Hanlon took another round in the upper leg, kind of groin area, before Platt moved away. Agent Morales, at this time, was able to recover enough to pick himself up and fire his shotgun, putting buckshot into both of Platt's feet. So more injuries to Platt as he keeps going, which I guess that made him stumble a bit before he continued. Yeah. Morales struggled to reload the gun with 1 arm as Platt jumped into the driver's seat of Grogan and Dove's unmarked car. Incredibly, at this point, Maddox had regained consciousness, and just in time he hopped out of the Monte Carlo and joined Platt in the FBI car. So now the 2 of them are back together, both shot horrendously, and Morales is the last man standing, trying to fire a shotgun with 1 arm, which is
difficult.
Yeah, that's tricky. So with 1 arm, he continued to fire and reload until it ran empty, having to stop and put the gun between his legs to pump another round, and then bring it back up. I think he was resting the shotgun on the trunk of the car that he and McNeil were behind.
Oh, okay.
Trying to fire in, but his wound kind of hindered his accuracy, and none of those rounds were effective other than the initial one hitting Platt in the feet. So, worried his fellow agents who were down at the back of the vehicle, because at this point he doesn't know that 2 of them are dead, or that 1 of them is still alive and could be saved, he's worried that they're going to be run over as the robbers backed up to make an escape.
Yeah.
So, Morales drew his .357 revolver, which was loaded with 38 plus P rounds, so heavy 38. And he rushed towards the men as he fired until empty, getting closer to the vehicle with each shot. So Morales was able to strike Maddox 3 more times in the face, severing his spinal cord and killing him. So that's what it took to stop Maddox.
Jeez.
Platt, meanwhile, his lungs are filling with his own blood.
Yeah,
and he's still trying to put a car in reverse. 2 additional rounds missed, and the final round in Morales' gun, which was the final round of over 140 fired between FBI agents and suspects in this insane 5-minute-long firefight, which are normally over in, like, less than a minute.
Yeah.
Seconds, usually.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, 5 whole minutes, which turned the South Dixie Highway into a war zone, where people actually thought an episode of Miami Vice was being filmed, using a bunch of prop guns. Mm. That one last round fired from the distance of the passenger door into the driver's seat, into Michael Platt's chest, finally killed him. Just as Miami-Dade police officers and the other 6 task force agents began arriving, shielding and rendering aid to the injured agents. So they were there right at the end. Mm-hmm. There was backup when it finally, hell was over. Both suspects were dead. Agents Grogan and Dove were dead. Morales, McNeil, and Hanlon were critically injured but survived. Manauzi and Orantia suffered non-life-threatening injuries, and Reisner was the only man not to be injured in the firefight. Mm. Despite the seeming impossibility of Platt and Maddox being able to continue fighting, despite being shot over and over in critical areas, an autopsy would reveal neither man was under the influence of alcohol or drugs during the shooting.
Which is insane.
Yeah, I still don't understand.
I mean...
The punctured lung should have been enough.
Yeah. And
you would think someone would just lay there dying after that.
Yeah, and it's the concept, too, of, you know, like, say there's a drunk driver, and the driver is fine, even though they went through a horrific accident, but they killed somebody else. Unless, because they weren't under the influence, they didn't bleed out as easily.
Possibly. And
that's
severe adrenaline. Maybe
severe
they were both
adrenaline.
Just full psychopaths.
It didn't register.
Yeah, the pain didn't mean as much to them as it would to a normal person.
And I mean, I'm just talking off the top of my head, but...
Go on.
I know there's some story somewhere of a suspect that, you know, fires a bunch around. They're hit 1,000,000 times. They're fired, but they still, like a chicken with their head cut off. They still keep going and then drop dead.
Yeah, I wish I remembered
that, you know, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the officer and the suspect exchanged every round they had.
And it was
finally the guy dropped after being hit almost 20 times.
Yes. And I can't remember what it is, but I know I've read that. Like, it is a thing, and I think I think you're right, part of it has to be adrenaline.
Yeah.
Some of it might be, you know, mental state, but also if they weren't under the influence, that would make sense, because if they were on drugs or alcohol, they would bleed out much more easily.
Right.
So that would kind of make sense, too, that they didn't.
Yeah. Stemming from this incident, the FBI transitioned away from 5- and 6-shot revolvers because of the frequency of having to stop and reload those. That left the agents vulnerable to high-capacity Mini-14 rifle rounds on numerous occasions.
Well, and that seems like common sense. Like, I realize it wasn't at one time. Right. I know those were the issued firearms.
Right. And they were effective, and you were trained to be accurate, and so on. But
the game has changed.
Right. On this occasion, this guy was shot a zillion times, and while he's still unleashing hell with probably a 30-round magazine on that
having
Mini
to
14.
Reload all those times. Yeah. And revolver, like, you can't... It takes a little minute, you know.
They can't be fired quite as quick as a semi-automatic pistol. So even if you were to unload all 5 rounds, that's slower than 5 rounds from your standard Glock or a similar pistol.
Right.
The ammunition used in the firefight was also heavily scrutinized. The .357 Magnum 38 plus P and 9mm rounds available in 1986 didn't have the stopping power necessary to stop Platt or to keep Maddox down.
Which is nuts.
He was shot in the head and the neck.
Do we know what caliber that was got him in the neck or the head?
I believe that was either 38 or .357.
Okay.
And then the 3 rounds that Morales fired as he was approaching their car, they were the 38 plus P.
Oh, okay.
The round that went through Platt's arm and almost to his heart through his lung was 9mm.
Okay.
So both pistol and revolver rounds, everything came close to doing the job, but nothing did.
Right.
Incredibly. Those rounds available in 1986 didn't quite have the stopping power the FBI was hoping they would, I guess. And that led to the development of the .40 caliber Smith & Wesson round, which had greater stopping power and was used in higher magazine capacity pistols. So instead of 6 rounds of .38, now we're talking like 17, 18 rounds of .40 caliber.
Right.
And that had greater stopping power and, like I said, used in higher capacity magazines.
Yeah.
Now, Platt had the agents severely outgunned with his rifle, which is, scary to show up knife to a gunfight or revolver to a rifle fight.
That's why you just bring all the weapons.
Yeah. Well, that is why. This incident, combined with the 1997 North Hollywood shootout, began a national push to get shotguns and rifles in every police vehicle so that law enforcement wouldn't be at a disadvantage in these scenarios. So that's why pretty much every cop or cop car on the road, there's probably an AR-15 type rifle and some sort of shotgun.
Yeah, this is the incident that set the precedent.
Right. You don't know if the bad guy, if they have a little Saturday night special pea shooter or if the dude's got a full-on, a Mini 14, I believe, was a military rifle for a time. So
that's the thing. That's another thing is that, like you said, you don't know what the bad guy has. And
I would rather have way more than him.
More often than not, the bad guy is going to have the underground weapons, the weapons you shouldn't have, the weapons police can't even get.
With fully automatic switches and all that.
So that's one of the strongest point of the argument is that you don't know what they're going to have, and if it's a bad guy, they're going to get whatever they want anyway, as far as weapons. And they're going to get the things that are the most illegal and hard to come by.
Right.
So you need to be prepared from a law enforcement standpoint.
Yeah, and this sort of thing has caused the big outcry about the militarization of police. But at the same time, can they really afford not to be, quote-unquote, militarized?
No.
If you show up to, or if you engage in a traffic stop and the person leans out the window with a Mini 14, you're not in a good position with your standard pistol running back to your car for cover. That's
the other argument, too, is that, we won't get too much into a political view, but those that have a problem with things like that, and police carrying certain weapons, but the whole point of police is public safety.
Right.
So a bad guy that has all the guns and all the illegal guns that he can or wants to get, he's not going to wait and go, oh, wait, there's a civilian over there. I need to wait.
Right.
Like the point at the end of the day, it's public safety.
Mm-hmm. If I was going to stop someone on a rampage who's got, a high caliber rifle, possibly automatic, I would much rather have something comparable rather than, they're 100 yards away and killing civilians, but let me see if this 9mm will, if I can accurately get a headshot on them.
Exactly.
I would be much more comfortable with, a long gun of some sort. You need
to come prepared. Mm-hmm. And that's, always to me the argument is at the end of the day, it's public safety.
Yes.
How can you provide that if you don't have the tools?
Right. Now, unfortunately, for the agents involved in the Miami shootout, this task force, I mentioned there were 14 guys total, but only 8 on the scene of this.
Correct.
Well, as the others arrived, it's unfortunate and ironic that, now every officer has a rifle and a shotgun, hopefully.
Yeah.
But these guys did come prepared. It just so happened that the 6 agents that weren't on scene had M16s, MP5 submachine guns, and several additional shotguns. They were just in the vehicles of the guys who were further away on the stakeout. Yet. They were en route, but it took them more than 5 minutes to get there with the heavy weaponry.
That's too bad, too, because it wouldn't have been a 5-minute long fight.
No, not with several dudes with MP5s.
And it would have been
Swiss cheese the car, and Platt wouldn't have been. He would have been done much
probably
sooner.
less death.
Yeah. Right. The only people dead
Be the
probably
suspects.
would have been Platt and maybe Maddox if he didn't surrender.
Right. But he may have at that point.
He fired the shotgun twice and then he just kind of stayed in the car.
Right.
So, yeah, once Platt was out of the fight, he may have given up.
True.
Who knows? But with those, heavier weapons on scene, there was a much greater chance to save Dove and Hanlon and everyone else from injury. But that's why when you see your friendly neighborhood policeman with a big old gun in his car...
It's for your own safety.
Yeah, that's why. Because, what if those guys... Platt was going to die soon anyway.
Yeah.
But if they did put the car in reverse...
Yeah.
They weren't going to obey traffic laws.
Of course
They weren't going to yield to emergency vehicles.
And then that's a whole other level of public safety scare,
And if they were reloading and now on a rolling shootout with whatever other officers came to try to catch them, more death, more civilians in the line of fire.
Yeah, at that point, okay, no bad guy, especially if they get to that point, they have nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. And that is always the mindset.
Well,
they don't have anything to lose at that point. They don't care who is in the way.
Yeah, you've just executed and shot several FBI agents.
Yeah.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel. Now it's run or die.
Exactly.
But big shout out to Agent Morales for, with pretty much nothing left, getting right up in their business and finishing the job.
John Wick style.
Yeah.
That's how I picture that.
Shut it down. Yeah. Bolted across the street, one-armed, with a 6-shooter.
Yeah.
And was able to put it down.
Yeah.
Woof. But that is the story of the 1986 FBI Miami shootout.
Thank you for listening.
Even though it was probably a lot.
Yeah, it was quite a bit.
It's a heavy one.
Yeah, but it is interesting. And
the history behind how it's shaped why things are the way they are.
Gives some more perspective.
Mm-hmm. But we appreciate you tuning in with us.
Make sure you sign the crime scene log on your way out.
Mm-hmm. And we will send you a subpoena accordingly.
No.
But,
no court dates for you.
No. I hope.
Yeah.
We can't make that guarantee.
No, but in regard to the podcast.
Yes. Now, please join us next time instead of going to court. Again, no guarantees.
Stay safe.
So...